Hey, it's me, Bobbert, and let's continue with my Sakura War Song Maiev review, part 3. This chapter starts off with Shinjiro getting a performance point from each of his crew members. Most of them seem to like his performance so far, except for one person, Subaru, or at least he's keeping quiet about it for the meanwhile. That's why it's now time to talk about Subaru's story. The chapter begins with Subaru completing a crossword puzzle really fast. Rosita's angry at her because she wanted to finish the crossword puzzle, but Subaru left in a hurry, taking the newspaper with her. Next, we go to the theater where the crew is rehearsing for the next play. Things were going very well until Subaru decided not to participate because she thinks Rosita and Karen's performance are amateurish and it's not ready enough to rehearse with such an awesome star like Subaru. She particularly picks on Rosita's performance, the little child, and made her cry. Karen rightfully got angry at Subaru and defending Rosita. This ends up to an actual fist fight and Subaru leaving the stage. Shincho and Ratchet talk about Subaru in the elevator, and Ratchet brought up some interesting information about Subaru. Well, not Subaru herself, but about the European Star Division. First time playing this and getting familiar with the whole Soccer War franchise myself, I thought this may be a reference to the past games that came before it. But when I went to look up some information, particularly the Dead Stomach in the game, because I know that one takes place in Paris, Subaru was not a playable character to my knowledge. When I took a look at the roster, Subaru and Ratchet was not on there. So either this was like a side story in the game or something never mentioned until right now. Upstairs, Shinjiro meets up with the other crew members and Rosita and Karen wants to get revenge on Subaru, but Diana advised that they should instead talk to Subaru. This leads into one of the many funny moments in this game. Now, while Rosita talked about her plans to get revenge on Subaru, Karen brought the fact that we don't know nothing about Subaru, not even if she's actually a boy or a girl. Now, pretty much all the crew members refer to Subaru as a female, but they're not entirely sure if she actually is a female or actually a male in disguise. This is one of the funny moments, and it gets funny a little bit later on in this chapter. Next, we get to explore around the town and see how Karen and Rosita try to get the revenge on Subaru and failing. I wish I could show you all the parts that happens. It was so funny you could make a top 10 list out of them, but I'm going to show you most of the hypnosis part. It's pretty much Karen trying to hypnotize Subaru to being nice and honest, but backfire and end up hypnotizing Rosita. That night, Shinjiro heard a woman scream. He went to go check it out, but all he found was a mysterious man, aka the boss of the chapter, and a stone statue that looks like a woman. The next morning, the crew are still fighting with Subaru, this time because Subaru is saying bad stuff about Shin, how Shin is an unreliable captain and that he should be replaced. This leads to a battle between Shinjiro and Subaru. If Shinjiro wins, Subaru not only needs to apologize to Rosita and Karen, but admits that if she's a boy or a girl. If Subaru wins, then Shinjiro must play Subaru's part in the play. Now the battle, unfortunately, is pretty much like a quick time event. It's not bad. I just would have preferred, kind of like the battle mode, but instead of fighting giant robots, it'd be them in their human form. But for the most part, this was like an entertaining battle part. Now, one interesting thing about Subaru that she is undefeated before this fight, and unfortunately, there's no actual way to beat her. The only thing you can do is gain some good trust points with her, or whatever it is technically called, increase your friendship with her. And unfortunately, you'll always lose no matter what you do. Now, because he lost the duel, he must now practice for the play that he needs to be in. That night, an hour before the play starts, Shinjo just found out that his character that he's playing is actually a girl. How he didn't know beforehand is something I'm never going to figure out. Sherry and Audrey forced Shinjiro to change in his room, and now he must walk around town dressed as a girl. This is one of the funny moments in this game, and I'm not going to talk about it too much. It's just the interactions between him and the other crew members are pretty hilarious. After touring the town, the parade begins and it was a success. After the parade, Subaru talked to Shinjiro alone on top of the building. She was quite interested in his performance, even though his dancing was technically not good. P.S. She's always going to say that no matter how good the dancing was, even if it got a perfect. But anyways, she thought it was pretty interesting and maybe a possible change of character in Subaru. Meanwhile, Cherry and Audrey were on the cruise. Things was going so great until Sugar Ruby revealed himself and turned all the women to stones, including Cherry and Audrey. The crew realized that Cherry and Audrey was kidnapped and decided to go on the boat to look for them. Subaru's idea is to dress up like women so they'd be invited to the cruise and then sneak in when Sugar Ruby's not looking. Unfortunately, this also means that Chainsaw needs to put on that costume again. When they made it to the boat, Chainsaw in the game found Cherry and Audrey. They used their number to free them, or in this case a Hyodoken pretty much, and finally Cherry and Audrey are free. Unfortunately, Sugar Ruby spotted them, and this leads up to our first battle of the game. Now the mission in this battle is to rescue these 5 women's statues and lead it to the end of the boat. Just like I said in the Chapter 4 first battle, this game likes to give you something new without actually giving you something new, but unlike the first battle Chapter 4, in this one it seems pretty tedious, and well, the way you move the statues is by pretty much kicking it like a soccer ball. Or at least that's how it looks like when you actually moved it. And the problem with that is that sometimes it's easy to slip from it. Now you don't use any tons of moves from it, so you could have pretty much infinite tries, but it still gets pretty annoying. The battle itself, you don't have to worry too much about the enemies, but what I recommend you doing is try to go to the 2 doors over there where the 2 farthest statues are. If you don't get to them right away, those enemies will take them away, and you will use the game even if they only take one of them. For this battle, it's pretty alright. Besides the rescuing part, there's nothing really noteworthy about this battle, but it's still a pretty decent battle nevertheless. After rescuing the 5 statue women, Sugar Ruby comes out and attacks 3 of your members, Diana, Rosita, and Karen. Unfortunately, you got to leave them behind and go after Sugar Ruby with Subaru. Sugar Ruby seems to be stronger than they expected, but they managed to take it down anyways. Now it's time for the second battle of the chapter. Now in the first part of the battle, you need to destroy this tank in front of the robot. Destroying the tank will free those 3 girls from their curse and help y'all to defeat this robot together. After destroying the tank, it seems like you didn't make it in time at first. This caused Subaru to cry. This is probably the first time Subaru ever expressed any emotion, well, besides anger. Then suddenly, Karen, Rosita, and Diana all help out in battle. This caused into this little funny cutscene where everybody kind of teases Subaru for having an emotion, but then they all became friends and continue on with the battle. Now, Sugar Ruby is actually a pretty easy boss to defeat. His weakness is in the top of his head, and his main attack is both his arm. Now, usually I would recommend destroying each part of Robot's body to make it pretty easy, but the thing is that his two attacks are easy to dodge, since either stand exactly in front of the robot or behind the robot, and you shouldn't be attacked by his arm. Other than the head, I would recommend attacking the tank that's actually behind him, because that tank can recover his HP real quick. Now, other than that, there's also a spiral frame that prevents you from going up and down exactly, but it's easy to traverse. This final battle is kind of disappointing compared to the last battle. It was pretty easy, and since Subaru's one of my favorite characters, I was kind of hoping the boss battle would be pretty epic, but oh well, I guess you can't have everything correct. But in other words, I guess this is not a bad battle, but it was pretty disappointing nonetheless. After defeating Sugar Ruby, the gang all celebrate, of course, and Subaru is a new person. She no longer hides her emotion, and she is now more open to people. I really love Chapter 5's story. It's one of the funniest that I ever listened to in the game, and unfortunately, the Chapter 5 battles were pretty dull in comparison to Chapter 4 and maybe even the other chapters, but well, the first battle was at least had something different. I didn't really like it because it's really hard to get all the statues into one place without slipping, but the second battle with Sugar Ruby was disappointing because it was easy and predictable, and it didn't really provide enough of a challenge compared to Chapter 4 boss battle. But either way, I like Chapter 5 better than Chapter 4, mainly because of its stories. But let's head on to Chapter 6. Chapter 6 begins with Gemini's Sunrise encounter with a rabbit boy way back. Now, of course, you already know that's Gemini's Sunrise, and, well, to be fair, you're correct and incorrect. I'll explain later on. But for right now, Gemini wants revenge on Wamanu for killing her master. After Shinjo and the Star Division members have a conversation about the Masked Woman, Shinjo ends up encountering the Masked Woman in the alleyway. Now in this part, you perform your actions really quick, and the quicker you do that, the more information you be able to get from the Masked Woman. You do this enough time as you can until that meter on the top fills up. After that, she ends up running away. The next morning, Shinjo has a meeting with the commander to discuss about the Firing Warriors. Now the Firing Warriors are those who has a birthmark on their skin, and you may have noticed that, maybe not in this video, but when you play this game, you notice that each one of the Star Division member has those marks, and the reason they bring this up right now is because they think that the Masked Woman will be the final member of the Firing Warriors. Now it's up for Shinjo to find out if she is actually the fifth and final member. After exploring the city trying to look for some information about the Masked Woman, Shinjo ended up encountering her again, this time helping her hide, or at least that's what I chose. After getting her to a safe place, the Masked Woman dropped a scroll. Shinjo decided to take it to Commander Sunnyside. The next morning, Gemini is being clumsy and feeling down about herself. She mentioned how her sister is going to be angry at her, which is the first time she ever mentioned having a sister. Could she possibly be the Masked Woman? Everybody went shopping that day, then suddenly a huge robot monster appears. Gemini was caught in an explosion, but out come the Masked Woman and destroyed that robot by herself. Proceed to attack the Masked Woman after destroying that demon, and her mask fell off which looks a lot like Gemini. The red-headed warrior managed to escape, with only Shinjo sawing her face. After the explosion was cleared, it revealed that Gemini was okay. The crew decided to meet Gemini at her apartment to have a dinner. Gemini then talked about her older sister and pretty much told everybody that she is the masked woman. Now, for a little bit of spoiler before we go to the conclusion of this chapter, what Gemini said is technically true and technically false at the same time. You'll understand it later on. The Star Division member left except for Shincho, who stayed and talked to Gemini a bit more. Gemini pretty much talked about how she is homesick and want to go back to Texas, and the only reason she went to New York is because her master told her to. After her master was cured, he advised Gemini to go to the Big Apple and she'll find her answer there. She also mentioned that Gemini's older sister is there to want revenge for killing her master Mufune. Shinjo was about to leave, then Gemini offered Shinjo to stay the night with her. They slept in separate beds, of course. Now, during that night, Gemini escaped, but Shinjo decided to follow her to see where she's going. That person Shinjo ended up following, it was Gemini's older sister, Gemini. It's pretty much pronounced the same, but it's spelled differently. Anyways, this masked woman, which I'm going to refer to her from now on, because Gemini and Gemini sounds the same, but pretty much the masked woman wants revenge. Shinjo tried to talk her out of it, but it's no use. She seems to be having her heart set on getting revenge on that rabbit girl. When Shinjo went back to Gemini's apartment, she was gone during the night, but found her back in her bed in the morning. When Shinjo asked Gemini where she's gone, Gemini said that she didn't really go anywhere. So this mystery between Gemini and her older sister keeps getting bigger and bigger. Later that morning, Shinjo and Gemini had exercise in the park. They pretty much had a sword fight with wooden sword, and Shinjo noticed that her fighting style is pretty much similar to her older sister's fighting style. Now this leads to one of the most awkward conversations in this game. I'm not going to discuss too much about it. You can just pretty much read it from right here. It's caught me off guard, and well, I recommend if there's other people in your room and you're kind of embarrassed and stuff like that, I advise you not to let them watch it. After training with Gemini, you then go to the dealer and look for some clean towels for Gemini, who's in the shower at that point. After you find the towel and give it to Gemini, you end up giving her a message to Cherry, but well, I guess technically not accidentally, but you went in at the wrong time, and while you try to escape, you became unconscious. And then when Shinjo woke up, saw Gemini putting her pants on and spotted the birthmark on her. Man, when playing through this game again, I just realized that this is probably going to be the most awkward story to talk about in this review. It probably wouldn't be too awkward if Gemini Sunrise wasn't 60 years old, but still, I feel, and to be honest, I feel kind of comfortable talking about this. Now, after all that happened, Gemini realized that she has the 5-ring royal mark and now a member of the Star Division. Commander Sainsai talked to Shinjo alone after Gemini left the room. He pretty much said that Gemini and her sister Gemini are pretty much one and the same. She has split personality. That means that Gemini was the masked woman, but it was her older sister taking control during that time. Now, first time playing this game, going through the story, I knew, well, pretty much everybody knows that it was Gemini, Gemini, but I didn't think it would take a split personality story, so I give kudos to the writer. Granted, it's not the most original writing, but I didn't really expect that. Now, unfortunately, because of this, that means Gemini and her split personality Gemini can't act as one. So what Sunnyside was planning to do is shock therapy, pretty much to erase Gemini's older sister memory from existence, so Gemini could have full control of her body. Shinjo thinks that's inhumane and find a different way to control both personalities. When Shinjiro talked to Gemini, Gemini was in full support with Shinjiro, but her split personality has other things in mind. She still wants her revenge against Wamaru for killing her master. Gemini's older sister remained controlled through a whole day, and during that day, New York was attacked by Wamaru. Gemini got angry and decided to go after Wamaru herself without the team. This caused Shinjiro to go after Gemini while the rest of the Star Division crew go out and protect the city. This leads to one of my favorite cutscenes of the game. You know how Gemini was able to destroy robots with one single blade, but her attacks seem not to be working with Shinjiro. She becomes more frustrated every time she swings her sword until she finally bursts into tears. This caused both sisters to have an out-of-body experience and have a communication with the late Master Mufune. Gemini is finally done with revenge and give full control of her body back to her sister. And after that, the beginning of the first battle finally begins. Okay, the first battle is a rescue mission. Both Shinjiro and Gemini need to rescue the four members before they get zapped to death. Now, this is the first time playing as Gemini, and Gemini is pretty much a combination of Shinjiro and Subaru. Pretty much, she has the same fighting style as Shinjiro, and kind of like Subaru, how she can go through enemies, she is able to jump over enemies to get to other places. Now, what I really like about this boss battle is that it really challenging you, and well, you may have noticed there's some switches and bombs on the floor that looks alike, and it's always random every time I play through it. At least I don't really notice one in the same spot because it's pretty hard to tell which one's which, so it's pretty much a guessing game. But I really like how this boss battle is handled. It's a great way to introduce Gemini, and it's a great challenge. I recommend using this strategy is rescue your teammates first, and then only destroy minor enemies if you can hit multiple of them at once. I mean, don't just ignore them because a lot of them can do much damage and they can respawn a lot. But rescue your teammates first, and once you rescue all four of them, you complete the mission. Now the second battle is pretty much the same robot battle from the first chapter. The only difference is that the weak spot is located somewhere else, and there's new weapons to destroy and avoid. This is kind of disappointing considering not much has changed in strategy. I pretty much recommend the same strategy as destroying the tank in the back, and destroying the other parts of the robot is probably not too important compared to the first chapter, mainly because you got more players to pick from. But I still recommend destroying the car and the scythe, as well as the propellers on the bottom that moves your characters up, pretty much to avoid the weak spots that is located underneath the robot. But for the most part, all you just need to do is find the weak spot and that'll be it. Overall, pretty disappointing battle to a pretty awesome chapter for the most part. So pretty much like Sector 5. After defeating Wamaru for the second time, Jimmy now has the choice to get her revenge on Romelu for killing her master. But of course she doesn't. This story is talking about how you shouldn't get revenge. And it's a nice story. Unfortunately, this is going to end up coming back in the next chapter. Gemini Sunlight is now a full member of the Star Division. She gets to perform on the theater, and they have a party celebrating her victory against Romanu. Gemini spoke to Chinchilla alone, mainly because her sister wanted to talk to him. Gemini pretty much said that she's been going to a deep sleep and that her sister Gemini had full control of her body. So pretty much this is the last time we get to see the other side of Gemini. Now, overall, chapter 6 was pretty good. Now, even though you could probably predict what the story's going to be, it wasn't too predictable as I expected. And I really like the story about revenge. Like, is it right to get revenge, even killing somebody like you love? The first battle was pretty awesome. Definitely brought something new, even though it's not the first rescue mission. This is the first time you rescue your own teammate, and it really brought a next level of intensity to the battle. The second battle was pretty disappointing, even more disappointing than the one in chapter 5, but overall, a pretty good chapter 6. Now, 2 more chapters to go, and hopefully I can finish this one in time, hopefully by the first week of February. So stay tuned for that. This is me, Bobbert 33, and I catch you later.